You know, we've all said it. I'm so stressed out, I just know I'm going to get sick. And it feels so true, doesn't it? But how? How does a crazy deadline at work actually turn into a full-blown head cold? Well, in this explainer, we're going to dig into the real science that shows it is absolutely not just in your head. Turns out your immune system is secretly listing in on your thoughts.
So think about it for a second. The last time you felt seriously stressed out, your heart was probably pounding, your mind was just racing, but what was actually happening deeper inside? At a cellular level, what orders was your brain shouting to your body's own defense forces? That's exactly what we're going to uncover today.
All right, so here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with the body's built-in alarm system. Then we'll look at the two very different phases of stress. After that, we're going to dive deep into what your body's actually doing on stress and what happens when that alarm system, when it breaks. And finally, we'll wrap up with why all of this really matters.
Okay, first up, the body's alarm system. Because, before we can talk about how this system breaks down, we've got to understand how it's designed to work in the first place.
So it all kicks off with something called a stressor. And really, a stressor can be anything. It could be that huge project deadline, or getting stuck in traffic when you're already late. It could even be an actual physical threat. The wild part is, your body doesn't really see a big difference between them. It just sees a challenge, and it flips the switch on this powerful, super ancient response.
All right, and this is where things get really interesting. Because most of us, right, we think of stress as just bad. End of story. But the science, it tells a completely different story. It turns out stress actually has two very distinct faces. And here's the absolute key. It's not the stress itself that's the problem. It's how long it sticks around. That's what decides if it's going to be a friend or a major foe to your immune system. The whole secret? It's all in the timing. And this comparison here just lays it all out perfectly. So on one side, you've got acute stress. Think of this as good stress. It's that short-term, immediate fight-or-flight jolt, right? Like when you have to slam on the brakes to avoid a car accident. For a little while, this kind of stress actually boosts your immune system, getting your body ready in case of injury. But then, you've got its evil twin over on the other side, chronic stress. This is the bad stuff, the relentless long-term pressure that just grinds you down day after day. It doesn't help you, it actively suppresses your immune function, basically leaving the gates wide open for you to get sick.
Here's a really great way to think about it. Imagine a fire alarm. Acute stress is like that fire alarm going off when there's a real fire. It's incredibly useful, right? It's loud, it gets your attention, it saves your life. Now, imagine that same alarm is just broken, and it's blaring 24/7 for no reason. That's chronic stress. After a while, the whole system just gets worn out, and you even start to ignore it. So when a real fire does show up, you're not ready.
Okay, so what's the actual machinery behind this whole alarm system? How does a thought, a feeling of pressure in your mind, actually translate into a physical change in your immune cells? Let's pop the hood and take a look inside.
It turns out your brain talks to your immune system through two major pathways. You can think of them like two different emergency phone lines, or communication highways. The first one is called the HPA axis, and the second one is the sympathetic nervous system. We'll just call it the SNS.
So, the HPA axis, it works like this perfectly coordinated chain reaction. It all starts in the brain when the hypothalamus detects some kind of threat. That's step one. For step two, it sends a chemical signal over to the pituitary gland, which gets the message and then secretes its own messenger hormone. And then for the final step, that hormone travels all the way down to your adrenal glands. They sit right on top of your kidneys and gives them the final command, release the big one, cortisol.
And cortisol. Cortisol is really the main character in this whole story. It's the body's #1 stress hormone. And in small, short bursts, it is fantastic. It's critical for managing your immune response, helping to control inflammation, but when it's constantly flooding your system because of that chronic stress we talked about, that's when it goes from friend to foe and starts to cause some serious problems.
Now that other pathway, the SNS, it's all about pure speed. This is your immediate fight-or-flight system. This is the one that dumps adrenaline and noradrenaline into your bloodstream, making your heart pound and your senses go on high alert. It's responsible for that instant jolt you feel when something startles you.
So, okay, we have these two incredibly powerful systems ready to go at a moment's notice. But what happens when that fire alarm we talked about gets stuck in the on position? What's the real domino effect when that helpful acute stress morphs into dangerous chronic stress?
Well, here's the absolute core of the problem. Your immune cells have these little docking stations or receptors all over them, specifically for cortisol. But when they are just constantly bombarded with it day in and day out, they start to become resistant. I mean, they literally just stop listening to the signals. And this is what scientists call immune dysregulation. Basically, your immune system just gets totally confused. It starts overreacting in some ways, creating chronic inflammation, but at the same time, it underreacts in others, failing to fight off invaders like a common cold virus.
And you can see that effect so clearly in this chart. Look at the baseline bar. That's your normal immune function. Now see what happens with acute stress. You get a spike. Your defenses are temporarily boosted. But then, look at the chronic stress bar. Your immune response plummets way below baseline. Your whole system is suppressed, and that's when you get vulnerable.
And the consequences of this system breaking down, they are very, very real. We're talking about reduced activity from your T cells. Those are the frontline soldiers that fight off viruses. It can mean your body has an impaired antibody response, even to vaccinations. It's linked to a huge increase in chronic inflammation, which is a major player in heart disease. It could even raise your risk for developing autoimmune disorders, where the body tragically begins to attack itself. And of course, you're just way more susceptible to all kinds of infections.
And look, this isn't just a theory. The research absolutely backs up what we all kind of feel intuitively. A quote here from one of the key studies found that, yep, individuals under high chronic stress were just way more prone to developing things like colds and other upper respiratory infections. The science draws a direct line from that long-term mental pressure right to that frustrating cold you can't seem to shake.
All right, we've gone through the science, we understand the nuts and bolts of the mechanism, so let's bring it all home. Why does any of this actually matter in our daily lives? And more importantly, how do we turn all this knowledge into action?
Honestly, just understanding this connection is incredibly powerful. It completely reframes how we should think about stress management. It's not some soft luxury or a nice to have. It's a fundamental pillar of our physical health, just as important as what you eat or how much you exercise. Taking care of your mental state isn't just a good idea, it's a biological necessity if you want to protect your body.
So, if you're going to remember anything from our time together, let it be this. Takeaway number 1, stress has 2 faces. Short-term stress can actually be good for you. Number 2, chronic stress is the real villain here. It dysregulates and suppresses your immune system. Number 3, this whole process is driven by hormones, especially cortisol, through those communication highways we talked about. And finally, number 4, the consequences are real. We're talking everything from getting more colds to increasing your risk of serious chronic diseases. So I want to leave you with this final thought. Every single moment of every day, your immune system is listening in. It's eavesdropping on your stress levels to decide whether it should power up its defenses or stand down. So the question is, now that you know it's listening, what message do you want to send it?